Hi y'all, my name is Melody and thanks for stopping by, and if you're new here, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome as well. You're all appreciated here. Anybody who wants to come by and listen to me talk to myself is absolutely brilliant. If you also want to learn something, this might be the place for you. Welcome to another True Crime Book Reviews. If you are triggered or have any issues with anything such as murder and mutilation and any sort of thing like that, this is not the video for you. Please note that we will be talking about that. Well, I will be talking about this in this book review, because we're going to first slightly review the book, then we're going to go over the crimes. So here we go. So today's true crime we're focusing on is Ed Gein. Apparently you say that like fiend. That's what the book said. So it is called Deviant, the shocking true story of Ed Gein, the original psycho. And let's read the synopsis. It has a 3.90 rating on Goodreads. The truth behind the twisted crimes that inspired the films Psycho, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Silence of the Lamb from Harold Schechter, I think it is, America's principal chronicler of its greatest psychopathic killers, comes the definitive account of Ed Gein, whose ghoulish crimes stunned an unsuspecting nation. The year is 1957. Photographs would show him across the country, a slight Midwestern man with a twisted little smile, a man who lived for 10 years in his own world of murder and depravity. Here is the grisly true story of Ed Gein, the killer whose fiendish fantasies inspired Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, the mild-mannered farmhand bound to his domineering mother, driven into a series of gruesome and bizarre acts beyond all imagining. In chilling detail, Deviant explores the incredible career of one of the most twisted madmen in the annals of American crime, and how he turned a small Wisconsin farmhouse into his own private playground of ghoulishness and blood. From the heartland of America comes the true story, more horrifying than any movie or chronicle. Harold Schechter's acclaimed true crime chronicle, Deviant. So that's from Goodreads. My rating is a 4. I'm going to stand with the 4 because it is actually a really good book. However, many details, and I think it was like a little bit shocking for myself with all the details, even though like I've read a lot of true crime. This one was a bit this chat we're about to have may not let you sleep at night. However, if you do like books with a lot of, and it's very detailed on the person's life and how they lived and what they did, then this is the book for you. This book was actually published in 1989, so I'm just going to read what I wrote about it, because I wrote quite a lot on here. So, Ed Gein, as in fiend, born August 27th, 1906 in La Crosse County, Wisconsin, to George and Augusta Gein, and had a brother, Harry Gein, born in 1901 and died in 1944. Interesting fact is my grandfather was also born in 1906. He was born in November 1906. I just found that odd that they were born the same year. That's just me, but I guess a lot of children were born that year. His father was an alcoholic and abusive parent who had a hard time keeping a job. They owned a grocery store, which was managed by Augusta, but they sold it in 1913 in order to buy a small farm near the town of Plainfield in Washoe County. I think she was a bit of a businesswoman as well, and that comes across in later parts of the actual book as well. Augusta, okay, I just wrote that in the next one. Augusta was a very stern businesswoman who was very religious Lutheran and turned the family away from outsiders, only allowing her boys to go to school and come home to do chores on the farm. So she kept her boys very close. For Augusta, the world was an immoral place where drinking was a sin, and all women, excusing herself, were promiscuous and of the devil. She taught both her sons sections of the Old Testament, particularly missing out a lot of sections, but focusing on those concerning death, murder, and divine retribution. Ed himself was a shy student who others remembered as being a bit odd and laughing to himself randomly like he had some kind of inside joke. His mother punished him whenever he tried to make friends and belittled him at home, but in his eyes, his mother was a saint that could do no wrong. Augustus' actions would cause Ed to be extremely socially inept and awkward. It is also important to note that Augusta was a very house-proud woman who thrived in order and cleanliness. In 1940, his father died from heart failure caused by alcoholism, and Ed and Henry did odd jobs as handyman around the town to bolster the household income, as the farm was not enough to sustain them. Ed would also babysit for neighbors, and his easygoing manner seemed to help him relate more to children than adults. So he couldn't really talk to adults, but he was able to make conversations and with children and teenagers and things like that. While all this was happening, though, his brother Henry was dating a divorced mother who planned to move in with her. He would also speak ill of Augusta in front of Ed, who did not like his mother being spoke to in that way. In 1944, Henry and Ed were burning marshland on the property when the fire got out of control. The local fire department ended up having to put it out, after which Ed reported his brother as missing. A search party found Henry's dead body. They initially reported as a heart failure as the cause of death. However, it was later recorded by the coroner as asphyxiation. Schechter reports in the book that Henry had bruises on his head. However, the authorities accepted that this was an accident and did not conduct an autopsy. But once Ed was actually caught for the murders and the grave robbing, Henry's cause of death was actually cast in suspicion that Ed actually do this. Not long after Henry's death, Augusta suffered a stroke, which caused her to be paralyzed enough that Ed needed to take care of her. It was sometime in 1945 when he and his mother visited a man called Smith to purchase straw and witnessed him beating a dog. While this happened, a woman came out of the house to stop him while Smith beat the dog to death. Gein was not bothered by the dog, but the presence of the woman, who was not married to Smith, as she shouldn't have been there. It angered Augusta, who called her a harlot. Not long after this episode, Augusta suffered a second stroke, which Ed blamed on that woman, and died shortly after in 1945. Ed was devastated as he was alone in the world without his mother, the one person who he thought truly loved him. Augusta's death would be the catalyst to his downward spiral. The farm started to deteriorate, especially the house, becoming his squalid place of residence. He lived in just a few rooms where he read pulp magazines and adventure stories, especially which involved cannibals or Nazis. He continued to do odd jobs as a handyman around the county, working on road and crop threshing crews, all the while getting a federal government subsidy for the farm. Also during this time, he sold the 80-acre piece of land that his brother Henry had owned. It was during hunting season on November the 16th, 1957, when Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Warden disappeared, with witnesses reporting the hardware store's truck being driven away around about 9:30 a.m. By 5 p.m., Deputy Sheriff Frank Warden, her son, entered his mother's store to find the cash register open and blood splattered across the floor. Frank then told investigators that Ed had been to the store the day before and had asked her out, as well as saying that he would come back for a gallon of antifreeze. They found the receipt for the antifreeze, and Gein was then arrested, and the Washoe County Sheriff's Department searched the farm. When they began their search, they found Warden's body decapitated and hung upside down by a crossbar, dressed out like a deer. She had been shot with with the mutilations being post-mortem. The further they went into the home, the more grisly the discoveries they found, which included whole human bones and fragments, a wastebasket made of human skin covering several chair seats, skulls on bedposts, female skulls, with some of the top sewn off, bowls made from human skulls, a corset made from a female torso, skin from shoulders to the waist, leggings made from human leg skin, mask made from the skin of female heads, Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag. That is another woman that went missing. She was a tavern owner. Mary Hogan's skull in a box, Bernice Warden's entire head in a burlap sack, Bernice Warden's heart in a plastic bag in the front of Gein's pot-bellied stove, 9 vulva in a shoebox, a young girl's dress and the vulva of 2 females judged to have been about 15 years old, a belt made from female human nipples, 4 noses, a pair of lips on a window shade drawstring, a lampshade made from the skin of a human face, fingernails from female fingers. Gein soon admitted that he had been to 40 grave sites and robbed fresh graves to amass his trophies, leading officers and the crime lab to some of these sites to confirm that this was true. Not only this, but Gein had a burn pile behind his home where he burned and buried the bones of the corpses that he exhumed. One of the most disturbing aspects of the case was although the rooms in which Gein lived were dirty and squalid, he had boarded up the rooms upstairs as well as the parlor and the living room downstairs, which remained as organized as on the day that Augusta died. So the rooms that she used, he boarded up and kept them, well, pristine as much as you can with the dust and everything collecting. All sexual motives were denied by Gein as the cadavers apparently smelled too bad. Yeah. He admitted that he also killed Mary Hogan, who owned the tavern and had been missing since 1954. They believe he killed these 2 women because they reminded him of his mother. And that's why he killed the 2 women, businesswomen, and they were a similar frame to his mother. And apparently he couldn't get into his mother's grave to get her body out because she was in a and surrounded by concrete or something like that. So he couldn't get into it on his own. Apparently he did try. When details of the crimes got out to the world, the media descended on Plainfield, with locals telling tales of encounters with him, however, most of these being untrue. Youths, though, had visited his home, reported that Gein had shrunken heads in his home. The explanation from Ed being to these children that a cousin had been to the Philippines during World War II and had brought them back. They were in fact the human masks that Gein had worn. Plainfield, and especially the Gein farm, became a place for dark tourism where hundreds of people drove to get a look at the places where he had committed his crime, which also caused grievances with the locals. Other missing person and unsolved cases in Wisconsin were attached to Gein, but were ultimately dismissed as no evidence could be found connecting him to these. It was also said that Sheriff Art Shiley, who assaulted Gein by putting his head and face into a brick wall due to the macabre nature of his confession. It also meant that confession that he made in front of Shiley that was inadmissible to court. On November the 21st, 1957, at Washara County Court, a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity was accepted, and Gein was found to have had schizophrenia and therefore was not mentally fit to stand trial. He was sent to the Central State Hospital for the criminally insane and later the Mendota State Hospital. After this, the house and the farm were scheduled to go to auction on March 30th, 1958 to pay for his legal costs, and Gein being sued by members of the deceased's family. However, the townspeople were not interested in the home becoming a tourist attraction, and perhaps because of this, on March the 20th, the house, which lacked any electricity, was destroyed in flames. Arson was suspected, but no one was caught, and to that, Gein said, just as well. After, however, they did go ahead with the auction, and the 1949 Ford sedan used to haul the bodies was sold to a carnival sideshow operator named Bunny Gibbons, who charged 25 cents for admission to see it. Gibbons was driven out of Wisconsin because of his trying to profit off of Gein's heinous crimes. In 1968, he was declared mentally fit to stand trial, but by that time Art Shiley had died of a heart attack in the same year, with many saying it was the Gein case which traumatized him. The trial began on November 7, 1968. Gein tried to pass the murder of Bernice Worden off as an accidental shooting, and subsequently stated he did not remember anything else that happened, not the dismembering, nothing. As the trial was held without a jury, it was up to Judge Robert Goldmar to find him guilty, which he did on the 14th of November, with a second trial being held to deal with Gein's insanity, and after testimony by doctors for both the prosecution and the defense, Gein was ordered to be recommitted to the state hospital for the murder of Mrs. Worden, while not being tried but admitting to the murder of Mary Hogan. Ed Gein died at the Mendota Mental Health Institute from respiratory lung failure caused by lung cancer on July the 26th, 1984, at the age of 77. He is interred between his parents and his brother in the Plainfield Cemetery. A stone once marked his grave. However, the stone has been chipped up by those seeking macabre souvenirs, and in 2000 it was stolen, only later to be recovered in Seattle in the next year, 2001, and placed in store at the Washara County Sheriff's Department. The story of the murder and body snatcher Ed Gein was a cause de celebrity of his time, with many legends and untruths being intertwined with facts to create a larger-than-life monster out of someone who was once an unassuming bachelor. Ed Gein's story has become the stuff that nightmares and legends are created from, living on in American pop culture through film, music, and literature, which includes Hitchcock's most famous movie, Psycho, 1960, which was adapted by the 1959 book by Robert Bloch, and he inspired such characters as Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. He also inspired Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses. However, my favorite inspiration is the Slayer song, Dead Skin Mask, which I have listened to many a time because I am a fan of Slayer. Not only this though, but the locals of Plainfield, Wisconsin used Ed Gein to scare their own children into behaving and even creating a version of a visit from St. Nicholas using Ed Gein, which I am going to read here. I don't know if this does any copyright or anything like that, but hey ho, I don't get paid, whatever. So, 'twas the night before Christmas, when all through the shed all the creatures were stirring, even old Ed. The bodies were hung from the rafters above, while Eddie was searching for another new love. He went to Watoma for a Plainfield deal, looking for love and also a meal. When what to his hungry eyes should appear but old Mary Hogan in her new red brassiere, and her eyes how they twinkled ever so gay, and their dimples, oh how they merry were they. Her cheeks were like roses when kissed by the sun, and she let out a scream at the sight of Ed's gun. Old Ed pulled the trigger and Mary fell dead. He took his old axe and cut off her head. He then took his hacksaw and cut her in two, one half for hamburger, the other for stew. And laying a hand aside of her heel, up the rafters went his next meal. He sprang to his truck, to the graveyard he flew. The hours were short and much work he must do, or must he do. He looked for the grave where the fattest one laid and started in digging with the shovel and spade. He shoveled and shoveled and shoveled some more till finally he reached the old coffin door. He took out a crowbar and pried it open the box. He was not only clever but sly as a fox. As he picked up the body and cut off her head, he could tell by the smell that the old girl was dead. He filled in the grave by moonlight above, and once more Ed had found a new love. He let out a yell as he drove out of sight. If I don't get caught, I'll be back tomorrow night. And that, my friends, is the story of Ed Gein. I would say if you like this, there's probably something wrong with you. But anyway, if you want to hear more of true crime or history or just books in general or anything I actually post, please do subscribe. This has been a haunting message. Go out and listen to my favorite Slayer song. It's not actually my favorite Slayer song. I think my favorite Slayer song is Angel of Death. Have a look at that one. That's creepy too. If you want something creepy, read this book. It is full of creepy. Also, like I say, it's a really good book for that because it gives you a lot of information, but you will have nightmares. Also though, if you do like horror films, check out House of a Thousand Corpses by Rob Zombie. It's a brilliant piece of work. I do enjoy a Rob Zombie. Yeah. As you can tell, I'm a metalhead, gothy type person. But I will listen to anything. Anyway, also, yeah, again, if you like hearing things like this or like going into detail about like certain books or certain people or history, because in fact, even though this is a macabre history, it is an important piece of history as legends are made, born, and stories get twisted over time, and this actually tells the actual story, which dispels any rumors, because it is believed, if we believe what's in the book, he's only actually killed 3 people, if you include his brother, and the rest were body snatching out of the grave. He did actually, there was a thing I don't actually think I actually put there, but apparently it was, he was trying to rebuild his mother, which is the weird bit, and I think that's where they get the Norman Bates part of it going on there. Anywho, I'm going to sign off here because I have been creeped off for enough for the day, and I think I'll go and watch some makeup videos or something more happy, just to alleviate the presence of Ed Gein from my mind. Gein like fiend, because he was a fiend. Anyway, there you go. Stay safe, stay positive, and I will see you on the next one. I love you guys. Bye.